Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the council chambers. Today is September 10th, and I welcome each and every one of you to the council meeting tonight. And if you wouldn't mind standing to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Dale, the roll call.
Council President Healy.
Here.
Council Vice President Collins.
Here.
Councilman DeCruz.
Here.
Councilwoman Gledhill.
Here.
Councilman Veely.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you. Before we start to move on to the agenda for this evening, I would like to ask my council members for a motion to entertain a new item that will be read as item 9A, and that will be for discussion on the water situation that has transpired here in the town of South Kingstown. So if I could ask a council member for a motion and a second, we can add that to the agenda as item 9A.
Motion to add agenda item 9A, discussing the recent water issues.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion will be added to the agenda if there are any discussion items that wanted to be talked about this evening. Moving on, item number 4, A, B, and C. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meetings, which is the work session of August 14th, the regular session of August 14th, and a closed executive session that was held on August 14th?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda this evening.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to item number 6A. This is a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct a portion of the 2018 Kayak Fishing Challenge on Narrow River on October 20th at 6 a.m. to the Narrow River Preservation Association. This is subject to the execution of a hold harmless agreement indemnifying the town and an issuance of a certificate of insurance naming the town as an additional insured for this event in the amounts specified by the finance director. Proceeds will benefit NRPA water testing and education initiatives. Is Allison Cates here to speak on behalf of this event?
Good evening. I'm Allison Cates from Narrow River Preservation Association. Nice to see you all. I'd actually like to introduce Narrow River Preservation Association board member Jim Kaczynski, a resident of Wakefield, who's the chair of our Kayak Fishing Challenge, to answer any questions you might have.
Hi, I'm Jim Kaczynski. This is a Kayak Fishing Challenge. I don't know if have you seen the flyers for it all, or would you like one?
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
So the objective of our fishing challenge, it's a kayak only. It's promoting data collection on the river. It's also promoting recreation on the river, two parts of our mission on the Narrow River Preservation Association. And we're looking to seek approval from the council to be able to hold the event. We're doing it jointly in Narragansett as well. Our home base is going to be the Metatuxet Yacht Club, and but the river is divided between the two towns, so we would have anglers in the water of both towns. The objective of the tournament is to catch 4 different species of fish in the one day, and the angler that catches the greatest combined length of those 4 species would be determined to be the winner of this. It's three of the species, two of the species that we're fishing for. There are actually state records on the Narrow River for fluke and shad, so the records have been held there. And there's a third species that's not part of this challenge, but the white perch is also a state record from that water. So it's a pretty confined body of water, but it's, I think, a great resource.
So this sounds like a really neat event. How would people sign up and register?
They could sign up online. There's through the Narrow River Preservation Society website. There's the sites on this flyer as well, but narrowriver.org/kayak fishing. Thank you for asking.
Do you have any idea? It's your first one, but any idea of the number of signups you anticipate?
We anticipate 50. We had limited at 50. Similar events have sold out for 50. I do think that we're late in the sign-up season for this. Generally, this happens in boat show season, but this being our first year of that, we had a lot of pieces to get in place, this being one of them.
Motion to approve item 6A.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good luck with your event.
Great. Thank you very much.
Good luck, Jim. You're welcome. Moving on to agenda item 6, I'd like to ask the council members to approve items B and C together with a joint motion, which is a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct the Peacedale Block Party, which would be on September 15th from 2 to 10 p.m. in the Peacedale Rotary to Green Street and Railroad Avenue, and the adjacent parking lots here located in Peacedale, subject to the execution of a hold harmless agreement indemnifying the town, issuance of a certificate of insurance naming the town as an additional insured for this event in the amount specified again by the town finance director and approved by the town's Traffic and Transportation Review Committee. And this application has been presented by Therese Martin, president of Peacedale Revitalization. And item C is a resolution for a Class F1 19-hour beverage license to the Peacedale Neighborhood Revitalization for the block party to be held again September 15th from 2 to 10 under a beer tent in the Palisades Mill parking lot. And this application is by Robert Sullivan. Do we have either one of those parties to come up to speak to this event?
Hello. I'm Therese Martin from Peacedale Neighborhood Revitalization, and I do have Rob Sullivan here as well. I am a little embarrassed to admit I don't have this certificate submitted to the town, the insurance certificate yet. I should have that in my hand tomorrow morning. Okay. So Peacedale Block Party, this will be our third time hosting this event. We did skip 2017, so I don't know if we can call it third annual. But basically, it's a free event. It's not a fundraiser, so it can be difficult to fund because we don't charge a ticket price. We try to make everything affordable. We pay for the rock spot climbing wall so that families can come and enjoy that without having to pay out of pocket for fun stuff like that. So we block from the Rotary just about down to the Welcome House and then up the length of Railroad Street. And thankfully, Thunberg Enterprises, owner of Palisades Mill, lets us encroach on some of his lot space there, and hopefully the town lets us encroach on the municipal lot next to Sweet Cakes. And we plan to have Field of Artisans come and set up several vendors there. We have hopefully got a dunk tank coming if the insurance company will cover it. Some of you might have heard that we're having that. We have some food vendors and food trucks coming down, live music, face painting, art exhibits. Basically, it's just a nice family day. This year, the two new things are that we would like to get the beer tent, which is full privilege because we would like to involve Sons of Liberty Distillery as well as Whalers, and we wanted to have beer from one, drinks from another. And to be clear, our non-beer alcohol is pre-canned servings of, there's no mixing happening, there's not going to be any strong drink, it's all preset. I don't remember the percentages, but it's 12-ounce cans of hard lemonade and tea. So that should be pretty easy to monitor and control. And I don't know if we're getting right into the alcohol part of this, since it's sort of the new part of the event. But
No, it's fine to speak together because we're going to,
okay. So we do have a system that we've worked out with we have 2 tip certified volunteers for the day. And Whalers is not allowed to come to our event and sell beer for cash. So we had to figure out another way to do this. And on their recommendation, we've developed like a ticket system where our tips certified folks can take a donation and give you beer tickets. Anyone who wants to buy them gets a bracelet after being carded. Everyone gets carded. And then you can buy 1 to 3 tickets. You can redeem them with Sons of Liberty or with Whalers. And then there will be a second tip certified person serving Sons of Liberty. That's our volunteer. Whalers is actually going to staff their own tent, so they will all be tip certified. And our plan is, when you're purchasing your tickets, there will be some signage up that, everyone has to have their ID ready. I don't think it's reasonable for us to be able to cap the amount. We're only going to sell 3 at a time to any individual. But rather than a cap on an amount, because there's really no way to control that, if a husband and a wife each buy 3, we're going to have disclaimer that at any point, even if you paid for your tickets, you can still be refused service at the point of trying to redeem. So I think we also have a roped-in area, and we will have volunteers staffing, like bouncing pretty much, so that nobody can leave that area. So I think we have 3 sort of layers of
So Trace,
monitoring.
where's the serving area, or is it going to be that they can take their drinks anywhere, or do you have it restricted to a certain spot?
We would like to rope in a good portion of the parking lot. Is this echoing to everyone or just me?
You're fine.
I'm not sure how to handle this. Where we've traditionally had our food, we were going to put our tent and rope that off and rope Whaler's tent into that and one of the PDNRI booths. So there's a good-sized spread within view of our music stage that anyone can enter. There's no age limit on entry because we want families to be able to come in, have a drink, sit at the table, eat the food you just bought, but no one can leave with alcohol in their cup.
Right, so nobody is going to be like walking around the Rotary with a drink or anything?
Right.
Gotcha.
It's actually on Palisades Mill parking lot.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, motion to approve item 6B and C.
Second?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
If
Hope to see you all
anyone-
there.
If anyone would like to try to dunk me in the tank, I think I'm 3 to 4.
Okay, 3 to 4.
I believe
I'll
I'm
be
at
there.
5 o'clock.
It's only $5 for 3 balls, so everybody get down
If you're
there.
mad at me, it's your chance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to, I believe we'll take these together as well, item number 6D and E, which is a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct the Oktoberfest event right here on Main Street on October 6th from 12 to 9 p.m. And this is hosted by the Wakefield Village Association. And then again, subject to the execution of a hold and harmless agreement indemnifying the town, issuance of a certificate of insurance naming the town as an additional insured for the event. And these amounts are specified by the finance director and will need the approval of the Traffic Transportation Review Committee. I know we have Janet Burtwell here, so I'll move on to item E. I don't know if Kenny's here to talk to that, but Janet might be able to discuss that further. And that is a resolution granting an F1 19-hour beverage license, again, to the Wakefield Village Association for the Oktoberfest event. Again, this will transpire on October 16th from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m., and this application is represented by Kenneth Tetzner for the president of the Wakefield Village Association.
So I'm Janet Burtwell, and I'm going to talk today about asking permission to have the street closure. I've already been, this is actually our last step in the process. I've been to the traffic committee. We already have approval from the state to their part to close down the road. We have insurance. Every base has been touched so far, and just wanted to say that this is a weather-dependent event, so please pray for good weather. We've been rained out before, and we just can't reschedule it. It's a family-friendly event. We have lots of good things for all ages. The vendors will be set up in the street, artists and entertainers and food vendors along Main Street from Robinson to Kenyon. And part of the reason for that is to create a festive atmosphere so that all of the restaurants and stores along Main Street get some of the benefit of having such a big influx of people into South Kingstown just to see what things are about in our community. So, any questions?
So the road closure is only from 12 to 5?
The road closure is from 10 to 5:30. That gives the vendors some time to set up and break down.
Yeah, we try to get the street back open for 6 o'clock.
Okay.
That's the goal.
And Jan, can you tell us how you notify people that there's no parking in those lots and along the street?
Yes, I have a no parking sign that I distribute the night before, the day before, up and down the affected areas of Main Street, and then all throughout the municipal parking area that's going to be closed too. I put the no parking sign there. And I also have a flyer that I print up and distribute to businesses and residences from CVS all the way down to the Muse, just informing them that the street will be closed, so there are no surprises.
How, at what point do you do that? Is it 2 weeks in advance? Or?
Well, the flyer, usually it's about a week and a half
Okay.
in advance,
Thank you.
but the parking is the day before.
And there'll be a police detail at either end of the street?
Yes.
And did you want to speak to the beverage license?
So loud. Happens every time. How's that?
You're all good.
There we go. So all the alcohol will be sold. Actually, it won't be on. None of the tent will be on town property. It's strictly on the CTC and Phil's parking lot area. This is our third year. Same spot that we set everything up. We have the same layout. I think I've probably seen you all there before. So we set up a huge castle. So the idea is, again, it's another free event. What we do ask is for an in-kind donation at the door. So we try to raise some money because we have a lot of entertainment and stuff and bands and everything else that goes on that day. I can list it off if you want to hear all the entertainment because each year we try to bump it up. This year we're really trying to go with Oktoberfest theme, so we actually have German dancers, German bands. We went up to the German American Club in Pawtucket and rounded all those people up. So we're looking forward to that. We're going authentic. We're going to have some Stein challenges. We have the Ladies of the Rolling Pin again, Big Nazo. We have a fire dancer. It's not Liz. We have Pat Patriot, Slide the Fox from New England Revolution, the Nairobi Boys from Cardi's, the Great Baldini Magician. We have a mime, it's Jan. Elmo, Chase from Paw Patrol. So earlier in the day, we really try to concentrate on the kids. So we have Elmo, Chase from Paw Patrol, Elsa and Anna from Frozen, the princess. We put up a huge castle, so it's really exciting for the kids. We have the German band, probably going to say this wrong, Schuhplatte dancers. Those are the German authentic dancers. Barbershop Quartet, Dude Man Bro. I put a question mark next to that one myself. The URI Big Jazz Band, Tropicals. We have Moon Aerial Dancers. I'm going to leave that like that. You guys can come and check that out. And then our big band, the headliner, we haven't lined up all the bands yet, but is Take It to the Bridge again. Colby Jaber and the boys, so yeah, we have a lot of fun. It's the WVA, one of the WVA's biggest fundraiser for the year, and then we follow that right up with the Halloween stroll that we give back to all the kids in the community, so. Any questions?
Sounds awesome. See you October 6th.
Awesome.
Motion to approve items 6D and E.
Second?
With a pray for sun?
Yes.
Yes.
Pray for
All
some.
those in
Thank you.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. We look forward to it.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, both
Thank
of you. Thank you. Let's move on to, we'll combine again F and G under item number 6, which is a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct the Muse Tavern Gear and Beer 6.9K road race. This will take place on November 18th from 10 to 4 p.m. To David Barnes Development, the Muse Tavern, indemnifying again the town with an issuance of a certificate of insurance, naming the town as the additional insured for the event. Again, the amounts are specified by the finance director. This has to be approved by the Rhode Island Department of Transportation, and again, is subject to any additional conditions set forth by the town's Transportation and Traffic Review Committee. The proceeds from this event will benefit the Easter Seals of Rhode Island. Daniel Rubino was the one that put forth the application. And item number G, in conjunction, is granting an Class F 19-hour beverage license to the Easter Seals of Rhode Island, which is on Robinson Street in Wakefield. And again, the event will be held on November 18th from 10 to 4 p.m. under a tent in the parking lot at 456 Main Street in conjunction with the Muse Tavern. Gear and Beer 6.9K road race. Is Jennifer Martin or anybody else here to speak?
Good evening. It's nice to see you all again. I'm Judy Fortier. I'm the Director of Development for Easter Seals, Rhode Island, and here to answer any questions regarding the upcoming event.
The only question I had was, how do you control the parking situation? I know in the years past, you've been creative. I'm just wondering what you're trying to do for this year.
There's a couple of things that we do, kind of very similar to what Jan was just talking about. We announce there's no parking, and first of all, we have lawn signs in and around the route. Those go up 10 days to 2 weeks before the race. We also have designated parking that we work with other vendors, other businesses that allow us to park. We also are very cognizant about some dead-end streets and some people who kind of park in places where they shouldn't. So this year we're going to put additional signage up on those areas telling residents that we've designated this no parking for the Muse Tavern, residents only. So we worked that out with the Transportation Committee and went through all those approvals as well. So
I wasn't sure if there's any way to communicate to your participants ahead of time, maybe that what streets aren't available for parking, because this is such a great event, and I've heard nothing but good things, but every once in a while someone gripes about the parking. So.
There's one specific street where we've had repeated either participants or people watching the race park there. It's a dead-end street. I can't think of the specific name, but I'm working with the officers at in South Kingstown Police Department to make sure everything is as they wish it to be.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Motion To approve items F and G. 6.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good luck to another successful event. It's always been great. Moving on to H, 6H, a resolution granting a Class F1 19-hour beverage license to the Wakefield Music Festival in West Kingstown for the first annual Wakefield Music Festival. This will be held on September 15th from 2 p.m. to 12 a.m. in the parking lot of 323 Main Street. Application by Tyler Morris. Is somebody here to speak? Please come forward and state your name.
Good evening. I'm Tyler Morris, and I'm throwing the first annual Wakefield Music Festival in Wakefield. The event is to raise money for the local children's music programs in our town, and we are holding this event from 2 in the afternoon until 12 a.m., although music goes until 11 due to a sound ordinance. And the event is going to be packed full with music and activities for children. From 2 to 7, there will be games and a community mural being painted, some vendors selling little trinkets, as well as a number of little stickers and things being sold by volunteers. We have 20 volunteers to count, and those volunteers will be posted up around the event, some at the entrances, all 3 of them, to ensure that no one is leaving with beverage, and people will be stamped on entrance. It's a suggested $10 donation, and there is a raffle taking place as well to raise money. We're looking to raise $6,000 for the local children's music program this year.
I just have a quick question. I just noticed that the event is the same time as the Peacedale Block Party. Are the 2 organizations working together to kind of cross-promote?
Yes, yeah. We were just speaking with Therese, and she was saying that we're going to do a sign halfway through the bike path, and on one side it has the Peacedale Block Party and the other Wakefield Music Festival, and then it'll say, like, halfway there. Yeah.
Okay.
What are you anticipating you'll do for control of the serving of the alcohol?
Serving of the alcohol will be provided by Phil's Restaurant and all of their tip-certified servers.
Thank you.
Good. No? I make a motion we approve item 6H as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, Tyler.
Good luck. Seeing no oppositions, let's move on to I, and this is granting a license to URI Nice Slice, which is on Fortin Road in Kingstown, subject to the filing of a retail sales tax permit and the approval of the Kingstown Fire Department. Samantha Ryan is the applicant. Anybody here to speak on that? How shall we proceed from?
Continue it.
Continue it to the next meeting?
Well, do we have a motion to continue this? Item I.
I'll make a motion that we continue item I to the next meeting.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
J is a resolution granting a victualating license to S&J Food Enterprises, DBA Baked by Jessica, 406A Main Street in Wakefield. Jessica Dyer is the applicant. Is Jessica here or somebody to speak on her behalf? Hello.
So I'm Jessica, and I want to open a specialty cupcake with retail hours, but mainly like a by appointment type bakery. I will be open daily from about 11 to 5, maybe with the potential of doing some children's birthday parties, cake decorating, something else for children to do with winter birthdays around here. But that's it. Mainly just cupcakes, nothing else. You know, some brownies, cookies,
No cakes?
specialty cakes to order, birthday cakes, wedding cakes.
Did you
But-
say it's open by appointment only, or?
No, no, no. I'll be open daily for a certain amount of hours, but if, you know, people want to make appointments after those times.
Jessica, where is 406A on Main Street?
It is behind Sweeney's Liquor? Is it?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever done this before? Or is this your first time opening a business?
No, I've owned a business in Cranston. I had a pizza place in Cranston, but first time for a bakery.
Sounds like it's going to be great.
I hope so.
Good luck.
Thank
I make
you.
a motion we approve items 6J.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you.
Very well. Item number 7, we will open up for a public hearing, and after we have a public hearing on item number 7, once we get to the agenda, we will move on to item 14A, which is in conjunction with this. So this public hearing is relative to an application for a license to keep and sell alcoholic beverages in South Kingstown in accordance with the Class B victualler liquor license for Bombay LLC, Bombay Flame, which is located at 60 Old Tower Hill Road, by Farhan Hussain, who will be the manager of the dining area and lounge areas, and the license will be contingent upon the issuance of a certificate of good standing, and this is from the Rhode Island Division of Taxation, filing a certificate of insurance evidencing required liability coverage, compliance with all town ordinances and regulations, and the payment of any municipal taxes and user fees that might be in arrear to the town, and the correction of any fire code violations. Dale, is there any correspondence on this? Okay.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Donald Packer. I'm an attorney representing the applicants. These two gentlemen, Mon-O and Mutai, were here at the victualling license hearing, and they're basically going to be operating the restaurant. Farhan Hussain, who's the applicant, is here this evening for the liquor license hearing. They're going to open an Indian restaurant at 60 Tower Hill Road, which is commonly known or formerly known as Chen's, and so they say that just so everybody knows where it's going to be. They're hoping to open tomorrow.
Yes.
With the food, hopefully when the liquor license comes through, they'll do that, but they're opening for food tomorrow. We filed copies of the menus and the liquor menu, so if there are any questions, we're here to.
I saw your menu online. I really liked it.
Thank you.
What time do you open tomorrow?
At 11:30.
Are you open 7 days a week?
No, just 6 days.
Okay.
They're going to do a lunch buffet, right?
Yeah, lunch buffet and dinner order of the menu.
Which 6 days will you be open?
From Tuesday to Sunday.
Any comments or questions from the public on this public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Do we have,
14A.
do you want to move to 14A? We'll move to that 14A now. I can. Item number 14A, relative to the same, is a resolution affirming or amending the town's liquor license rules and regulations. Section 1, the current number of licenses is listed below, and this would be a change from, hold on, let me get it, a Class B victual license from 27 to now 28.
Make a resolution amending the town's liquor license rules and regulations, amending the Class B victualler license number from 27 to 28.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good luck.
I'll make a motion to approve item 7A
Okay,
as presented.
7A, then we need a motion to approve item number 7A.
I think he just made it. Second?
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Good luck.
Thank you. Moving on to public hearing 7B. This is an application requesting a proposed amendment to the zoning map to change the zoning of AP 57-4, lots 229, 230, 247, and 248, which is currently zoned as R20, medium-high density residential district, to R10, which is medium-high density residential district. The parcels are located at 287, 299, 313, and 0 Woodruff Avenue. It's approximately 4.49 acres, and it's shown in the attached map. The application is by Charles Sweet, and he's located on Woodruff Avenue.
Meg, I have two communications.
Thank you, Dale.
Communication dated September 4th, 2018 from Dr. Fran Alexikos opposing this change, and a communication dated August 29th, 2018 from the Planning Board recommending approval of this application and incorporating findings of fact consistency with the comprehensive plan and findings of fact consistency with the purposes of zoning.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Donald Packer. I'm representing the applicants, Charles Sweet as a trustee and his daughter who owns one of the lots. There are 4 lots that are being proposed to be changed zoning. The street addresses, which people might be more familiar with, would be 287, 299, and 313 Woodruff Avenue, and there is a 0 Woodruff Avenue because one of the lots is completely vacant. The Sweets own the property. Charlie Sweet has his main house on one, his daughter owns one, his son is building on one, and he has one other vacant lot for the family. The lots are very narrow in an R20 zone, which makes it difficult for side yards to construct structures, so they've asked to relieve that and rezone to R10. If you look at the map, the property across the street on Woodruff Avenue is R10. The property to the north, Silver Lake Cottages, is R10 and multifamily condominium development. The property to the south zoned R80. We probably know that as the Frizella development subdivision. They're large lots. They're deed restricted, can't be further subdivided. So it seems that this rezone to an R10 from an R20 is consistent with the zoning in the neighborhood. The planning board and planning department agrees, and so we're hoping that the council will follow the recommendation and rezone that to an R10.
Can you tell me if you have any specific plans for accessory buildings on the properties, or because I know you've already started construction on some of the homes, so just trying to get a visual on what the setback guidelines are going to look like for you.
Charlie's house has been there for a long time. I don't believe he has any plans to add any structures. His daughter's house has already also been there for a substantial period of time. And his son is building, that's the excavation that's going on there now. The accessory buildings, I don't really know that they have any additional plans other than what's already there for the 2 existing homes. And the one that's being constructed, I don't know what their accessory building plans are. But since it's kind of a family compound, they're only infringing on each other, I would suggest.
True. Do we have any more questions here? Because this, again, I'd open it up for a public hearing. Chelsea, I don't want to put you on the spot. I know you've made your recommendation. If there's anything you'd like to add, certainly. Anybody else here from the audience would like to speak on behalf of this public hearing? Please come up to the microphone and state your name.
Good evening. My name is Susan Marcus, and I'm a resident in the R40 neighborhood. But I'm here to suggest that while I'm in favor of greater density in parts of Wakefield, I don't think this is a good idea. It's right on the edge of Silver Lake, and while they're already building a number of structures here that will already potentially compromise the water quality in the lake, I just don't think it's a good idea. I think you could leave it as a family compound. Otherwise, it's kind of a spot zoning decision, and I'd prefer to see the town making more master plan kind of decisions around changing the zoning. I'm also interested to hear from Chelsea exactly how she thinks it's consistent with the comp plan.
If you'd like to get up and speak to that, Chelsea.
Good evening, Chelsea Seafort, Planning Director. When the Planning Board considered this specifically, they talked mostly about its location within the village of Wakefield and the availability of public services. So throughout the comprehensive plan, there are multiple references to wanting to develop within our existing villages in places where there's already public water and sewer. This is one of those locations in the eyes of the Planning Board. The Planning Board felt that this location is in fact in Wakefield. It's very close to Main Street. It's all surrounded by R10 on all sides except the R80 district and Silver Lake. It does have access to public water and public sewer in the right-of-way. And so they looked at it mostly from that perspective. When we talked about consistency with the comprehensive plan, in general, we look at both the future land use map, which designates density for areas, and then also the general goals and policies of the plan. So clearly this rezoning was in line with the general goals and policies of the plan, and so when we looked at the future land use map, this area, along with the area of the R80 zoning district, is shown as a low-density residential area. So the low-density residential area has a distinct density range, and I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but you have it in your memo. I believe it's in the 0.2 to 0.6 or 0.4 to 0.6 range. So that's 0.4 to 0.6 units per acre. And when you count up all the units in the R80 and the R20, which make up that low-density residential district, it's actually a lower density than what's called for in the comprehensive plan. Comes in at 0.1 lower than the required or the designated density for the future. So we do look at these things not from this lot specifically, but from a surrounding neighborhood perspective. This to me does not qualify as spot zoning because it is surrounded by R10. And when the Planning Board reviewed it, they looked at the picture of the neighborhood as a whole. If you were to look just at this lot and the density, then maybe it wouldn't be consistent with the future land use map, but you have to look at the whole area in its entirety.
Chelsea, there's already 4 lots there, so there's already the potential to have...
Potential to have one more dwelling unit if you subdivided the northernmost lot, which already has a house on it. So that house, which Donnie referenced has been there for a significant amount of time, sits right in the middle of that property. So in order to subdivide it, you would have to take that house down.
And it says, I think in our memorandum here, that to do a subdivision, it would be considered a minor subdivision and it wouldn't require a public hearing?
It would not. A minor subdivision is anything 5 lots or less. It does not require street creation, and so it would not require a public hearing. It would be reviewed by the Technical Review Committee and then by the Planning Board. The Planning Board would make the decision, but at a public meeting, not a public hearing.
Did the Planning Board have any concerns about the contaminating the water?
We discussed density and the relationship to Silver Lake. The Planning Board actually said, 4 lots with all lawn is not necessarily different than 5 lots with all lawn. And they recognize that DEM already has a required buffer from the lake. So within 50 feet of Silver Lake, the edge of Silver Lake is a required vegetative buffer. It's actually considered a freshwater wetland, so you can't touch it. And then there's a buffer off of that, an additional buffer. So they weren't necessarily concerned with the addition of 1 extra dwelling unit in this location.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank Thank you, Chelsea. Would anybody else like to come to speak to the public hearing? Any further discussion here at the table?
Do you have some?
Latecomer.
No, that's okay. Please.
Yeah, good evening, Maury Gates. I live in Kingston. I was raised at the corner lot of Lake Street and Woodruff Avenue. My mother still lives there. So understand some of the discussion that's taken place thus far as it relates to density. I think that makes sense. Understand the potential impacts to Silver Lake. I guess that makes sense. I think there's still some concerns given that Silver Lake has experienced water issues in the past. I don't know how long it's been, particularly with the developments that took place on the other side of the lake. But again, I don't think that there's necessarily too many changes that are going to impact that here. One of the things that I did want to bring to attention, I'm sorry that I missed the chance to speak to the planning board. And I had the same comment when Mr. Packer brought Paul Sherman in front of us for the condominium development, was that you're in a hot zone of Native American habitation. So between R10, R110, which we're familiar with at the top of Salt Pond, and a number of things that have been discovered around Silver Lake, as well as in the year 2000, there was 4 Native American bodies unearthed on Christopher Street, which is right across from this. So you've got a lot of activity that took place there, both in pre-Columbian and after. And I don't know that there's anything that can be done during construction. Whenever you break ground and you come across something, it's upon good faith that you come forward and say something, and then all work stops. So I don't know if there are any additional measures for construction in areas that have a high probability of Native American habitation, but something for you to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Just following up on Mr. Gates' comments. I know they've begun excavating some of the properties. Have they just come across anything that would give them pause?
I don't believe so. 2 houses are built, and just to follow up on the comments, we're not rezoning this so that we can create a development. These lots exist, and there's 4 lots and there's 4 houses, and the only possibility is possibly subdividing the northernmost lot, which is Charlie Sweet's house, which is a enormous house centered in the middle of the lot. And the likelihood of anyone actually demolishing that home and trying to divide that lot in 2 to make 1 more additional building lot on Woodruff Avenue is not conceivable. And 4 houses are going to be built here. Whether you folks change the zone or don't change the zone, Charlie's just looking for some relief to allow a better construction building envelope, because you can see how narrow those lots are, and you can build a long, skinny house, but you're not going to be able to face it towards the water and kind of get a view. So that's all we're looking for here. We're not looking for the potential to add any more lots. Thank you.
Any further discussion? There's no further discussion. Do we have any questions?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye. Motion to approve item 7B as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to 7C, which is the third public hearing tonight. This is relative to the proposed text amendments to the zoning ordinance, Article 5 supplementary regulations, Section 506.6 on Ministerial Road Scenic Highway, again shown on Exhibit 1, which is attached to your agenda. The proposed amendments clarify the standards and procedures for review relative to the properties located on the Ministerial Road Scenic Highway.
I have one communication.
Yes, please.
Communication dated July 25th, 2018, from the Planning Board recommending the amendment and incorporating findings of fact, consistency with the comprehensive plan, and findings of fact, consistency with the purposes of zoning.
Hello again. I am Chelsea Seifert, the Town of South Kingstown Planning Director, and we're here to talk about some proposed revisions to the Ministerial Road Scenic Roadway Zoning Ordinance Regulations. On Tuesday, ahead of myself. There we go. On Tuesday, July 24th, the Planning Board recommended the Town Council enact revisions to the zoning ordinance, changing the standards and review procedures relative to properties along the Ministerial Road Scenic Roadway, which are contained within Section 505.6 of the zoning ordinance. The proposed amendments are intended to clarify the standards for development and conservation along the roadway and to specifically relate the level of review required to the scale of potential impact. The Ministerial Road Scenic Roadway was established in September of 1991 in an attempt to prevent, as I understand it, the Rhode Island Department of Transportation from straightening and flattening that roadway. The road passes through a rolling landscape with a significant tree canopy and lush native greenery. Section 505.6 contains regulations for private development along the roadway that are guided by the Ministerial Road Stewardship Plan. The values guiding the regulations include maintaining a 50-foot vegetative buffer along the right-of-way, maintaining rural character, and minimizing negative views from the road, such as views of garage doors, accessory structures, etc. So during its work sessions over the summer, the Planning Board discussed the overall review process for construction along the roadway and whether the standards as written achieved the goals set forth in the stewardship plan. After a lot of discussion, the board recommended several strategic changes to the regulations intended to provide clarity for property owners, to ensure proper maintenance of the vegetative buffer, and to bring the required review process in line with potential impacts. So currently, all construction, both for new buildings and building additions, requires development plan review. Per the regulations, development plan review for properties fronting on or having access to the corridor must first be reviewed by the Conservation Commission and then the Planning Board. This standard applies to all properties, regardless of how far the structure is from Ministerial Road or what the vegetation is between the structure and the roadway. As an example, the Planning Board recently reviewed an application for an addition to an existing structure, and the structure was located over 800 feet from the roadway. So this standard as proposed, the revised standard as proposed, would require development plan review only when an applicant is proposing to change the vegetated buffer or is requesting relief from one of the standards outlined in the ordinance. For properties that do not have to undergo development plan review, the building official would determine compliance with the standards, and if the building official is unable to do so, he can refer the application to the Technical Review Committee for an advisory opinion. So currently, all garage doors must face both the rear and side of a house and away from Ministerial Road. Logistically, this is sometimes impossible, depending on how the house is faced. And again, this applies to all structures, all garages, regardless of how far they might be from the roadway. So if you have a structure that is 600 to 800 feet from the right-of-way, you still have to turn your garage. So the proposed standard would generally require garage doors to face away from the roadway when visible from the road. In addition to clarifying some of the standards, the proposed amendments also add a couple of new regulations that are helpful in preserving the scenic roadway values. So a lot of these relate specifically to the 50-foot buffer. So the Planning Board wanted to add a regulation that when vegetation is removed from the buffer as permitted, whether it's the tree is dead or dying, or you need it to, you've gotten permission to remove a tree to put in a driveway, you have to replace those trees in kind. There is proposed to be a standard that says when you remove vegetation in violation, you have to plant trees that are the same size as the ones you removed. There's a regulation right now that says if you are building a new structure and the vegetative buffer is minimal, new principal structure, you have to include new supplemental plantings, and they propose to add that for accessory structures as well. And then to make review easier, whenever supplemental planting is required, a landscape plan prepared by a landscape architect must be submitted. And then finally, there's a standard about accessory structures generally being located out of view, so behind a house or, behind the buffer if possible. And that is it. So I'm happy to take any questions.
So Chelsea, we talked a lot, or a little bit about this when we were doing the scenic highway for Route 1, and it seems like you've worked really hard to sort of cut the regulations as opposed to increase the regulations, because it seemed like there were very simple modifications people needed to make on their homes that they had to sort of jump through hoops for.
Yes. So the planning board, at several of the work sessions, there were residents from Ministerial Road who showed up and said, we just want to make sure that the roadway maintains its character. And the planning board was very cognizant of that, and the planning department staff and the planning board wanted to make regulations that balanced the potential impact for development with the required review process. So in the planning board's mind and in staff's mind, a garage that's located 800 feet from the roadway shouldn't have to go to the Conservation Commission and then the planning board for approval. That could be something approved by the building official at the time of building permit.
Not often we get to see something where we have less regulation, so...
the staff, we use the zoning ordinance every day. I'm in that ordinance, and we see a lot of development proposals come through, and we always try to keep an eye to what's working and what's not. And then what we think is not working, we bring it to the planning board for discussion.
It sounds to me like you've accomplished that. You identified something that wasn't working well. And I'm really pleased with the fact that the approval process isn't necessarily, or is actually easier and less cumbersome. So if there's a violation, and it probably doesn't change here with this, so it's a general question. If there's a violation in the vegetative buffer, how is that policed?
It's really only policed by neighbor complaint at this point. Yeah, someone would notice that trees are coming down,
yep.
And they would call the town, and that is it.
And then would it be the building official?
It would be the building official would, it really could be two ways. If the building was approved by building permit only, the building official would issue a notice of violation of the zoning ordinance. If it was something that required development plan review, it could also be a violation of their development plan approval, which would come out of my office. So it just varies a bit, but they're both considered zoning ordinance violations.
Great, thank you. It's good work.
Thank you.
Any public comments? Anybody from the public would like to come up and speak to this public hearing?
I'm Susan Marcus still. I sat in on at least one, possibly two of the planning board discussions of the changes here, and I would just like to say that I think they're all moving in the right direction. It's not, in my mind, as Joe said, to make the regulations easier, but to just make it more consistent, actually, with what we're really trying to achieve here. So I think that's good. I have a question, though. There are a number of trees coming down on Ministerial Road. Does anybody know why those are coming down? I drove from the train station. They're all from the train station to Curtis Corner Road, and there must be 18 trees of 2 feet in diameter that are newly cut down. They might have been dead. But I just wonder, particularly in light of Joe's question to Chelsea about who's checking for these things, who would be taking the trees down, and is anybody checking on them? And
So we are aware that National Grid is in the process of going along the state roads and taking dead trees. So my guess would be that that's what's going on Ministerial as well.
Okay, there were a lot of dead trees, so I'm hoping that's what it was. And the other thing I just wondered about, Chelsea, is Hope Leeson had commented that in order to maintain the native rhododendron, that some of the canopy and the 50-foot buffer needed to be pruned from time to time in order to let enough light in. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah, so we did have a discussion about the native vegetation. From a regulatory standpoint, we cannot necessarily require property owners to prune their trees without some kind of ordinance that says that they have to. I don't believe that would be in the zoning ordinance. It might be something different. But when the planning board discussed it, they landed on that pruning of trees to maintain the vegetation would not be a prohibited activity, whereas it previously was. So you'll see there's a reference to that in that list of permitted activities. That's one of the things you can do, is prune your trees to, for the health of the property.
Any further discussion? If you please come to the podium and state your name.
Hi, how are you?
We're good. How are you, Mr. Traeger?
I'll be up in a minute when you have open forum, but I don't know if I can get my thought out on this one because this is tricky business as far as I'm concerned. But when I heard the comments by a couple of you that you said that this is actually making the process, whatever the process is, easier for people, that makes me happy. But what doesn't make me happy is if things turn out that create situations where people cannot comply because they can't afford to comply. Now, I drive down that Ministerial Road. I call it Ministerial Road. I've been driving, I'm 78, and I've been driving it all my life. Since I was a little baby, that's how we used to get to the beach, the back road. There's a lot of swamps on Ministerial Road, along the side of the road. I know people that live on Ministerial Road. I know people that have cut trees down on Ministerial Road. I know they got in trouble for cutting trees down. I heard about it. But I know the same person, I'm not going to mention any names, it doesn't make any difference, that has a beautiful garden right along the side of Ministerial Road. And if I wanted to have a garden, and that was the only place I could put it, and I lived there for many, many years, I wouldn't want anybody telling me I couldn't put a garden where I needed to put a garden. So I appreciate extremely well the idea of preservation of beauty. But boy, we got some serious stuff to do. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, as far as preservation of beauty in this country. But this one, it's good. It sounds good. If you guys see it, I trust you. If you think this is a good thing that's going on, that's fine. And it sounds like a good thing, but it can get nitpicking when you start saying, well, how are you going to police this? Well, if a neighbor complains. So what are we doing? Setting neighbor against neighbor? I don't think it should be a neighbor complaint. I think if you're going to do something like this, you should have people every once in a while, you guys do it, whoever wants to do it. You think you want this done this way? Then you drive along, and if you see something you don't like, ask about it. I don't believe in neighbor complaints. Unfortunately, when you have one like the Brewster episode, I realize that's kind of out there, but, there's neighbor complaints like some people don't like a clothesline, I don't want. Do you understand where I'm coming from? That's all I'm asking.
Thank you. I just want to add that the regulations currently, so you can't alter the 50-foot buffer that's in there now. If you wanted to, you would need a variance from the zoning board. So you would need development plan review and a variance from the zoning board. So the regulations as proposed would, one, get rid of development plan review when it's not required, so you wouldn't need an engineered plan, you wouldn't need a landscape architect unless you're doing the buffer, where you otherwise would, so that is a significant savings to applicants. And then they also change it so that the planning board can grant a waiver if it makes sense through development plan review. So if they're reviewing a plan and someone says, I really need to put my shed or I really need to put my garden in the buffer, and they have a reason for doing that, then the planning board can grant that as a waiver, and they don't have to then go to the zoning board for relief.
Thank you, Chelsea.
And I think I'll just clarify that if I use the word easier earlier, that's not really accurate. I think after reviewing these changes, it's more fair. Thank you.
Any further discussion from the public?
Make a motion, we close this public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Motion to approve item 7C, referencing the findings of fact in consistency with a comprehensive plan in the letter from the planning board.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to item 8A, which is communication, which was dated August 22nd from Jim Bedell, resigning from the Waterfront Advisory Commission, received and placed on file, and we further direct as follows. I think a letter would be sufficient, Dale, to thank Mr. Bedell for his service.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to accept Mr. Bedell's letter of resignation and to send him that letter of gratitude.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. I'm going to open this up to item 9, but I want people to be cognizant. Item number 9 is comments from interested citizens. Item 9A will be also comments from interested citizens added to the agenda to discuss any comments, questions, or concerns about the water issue. So we'll take comments other than the water issue first under item 9, and when we get to what was added to the agenda, which is 9A, if there's any discussion that would be brought to the table, that would be the time to do so under item 9A, which was added. So for now, we're just going to do item 9, which is other comments from interested citizens. If anybody would like to come up to the podium and state your name, please do so.
My name is Martha Stamp, and I just wanted to let you all know, I was here a month ago or two, and I talked about affordable for people like me who want to stay in my own home. And I tell you, I went up to that Charlestown Mini Super, and that was right off of the bulletin board. I really think, and I'm glad I see my friend the tax collector here, that we could help seniors like me who really want to stay. And like I said the last time, I want to stay in my home because I want to continue working. And I know I can't live on my Social Security, and I love it here. I mean, I've been here since 1981 because I was forced out of Cranston, and you all know that story. But if you can give us a little break once in a while, instead of taking everything that we have, it's too bad. It really is. And you got to realize that people do watch this because I got phone calls after I got home. So keep on calling, group. Now, I'm not going to, this master plan or comprehensive plan, just a little history on this. I wonder where Leslie Chenard is, because I tell you what, back in the 90s and the early 2000s, I was in opposition to her, because I think Dr. Packer would probably remember me, and how we fought to make sure we'd have clean water, and it would be nice down here, and it would stay nice, and we would have a nice community. So keep it in mind. My other issue is the water issue, and I take it you're going to be talking about that. But for someone like me that had to go through, I cannot see without Avastin in my eyes. I have macular, and both of them. And I would imagine a lot of elderly people have this same problem, and this has to be addressed down in the South Shore. What is the problem? Now, it would be nice to know, we heard crickets over the weekend. Nothing from anybody as to why did this happen. Now, I live in the South Shore, and if I remember right, we go through this every year. I can't guarantee this. I can't put my finger on it. But I think when the tourists go home, they don't care what happens to us that stay here all year round. So this has to be addressed, because the bacteria is not good for people like me. Is this going to be discussed? And I'm really concerned over our affordable amount rising, and hopefully Mr. Bouchard will take care of that.
Thank you. Any other comments from interested citizens aside from the water issue? That will be tabled to the next agenda item.
I would like to say something. I haven't been able to get over here. I might not look that old, or maybe I do. When I go fishing in the morning and I don't get back till 1 o'clock, I'm done. I can't get over here. I just can't do it. I'm usually too tired. Try to watch it on TV the last time I tried to watch it, maybe you didn't have a meeting, but it wasn't on. I don't know why. Maybe it wasn't a meeting that day. I lose track of stuff like that. My memory goes out like just like that. I could just stop talking right now and forget everything, forget every word I'm trying to say. But here's one thing I want to say. I wrote it down, so I'll make sure I get it out. Is that I want to thank whoever the person or persons are that were finally, I don't want to negative this thing, but I mean, I waited a long time for somebody to take some action down on Succotash Road. And I saw that meeting I watched that meeting, and I wished I was here just to say something positive, because whoever figured it out, which I thought I had figured it out, I think some of the members up there had figured it out too. You got to open the gate a little earlier. So they started opening it at 8:30, instead of letting a line form all the way to Captain Jack's that blocks the whole road. They figured it out, and not only that, they enforced their situation, which they hardly ever had to do, because they opened the gate earlier. I mean, common sense. I mean, if they had to open it at 7:30, they should open it at 7:30, like it is over in Galilee. That's a nightmare over there too. I've been over there when it's bad. Anyway, making a long story short, thanks, whoever's responsible for getting it done, because nobody would take responsibility last year, and it was really bad for a while. Okay, I wrote a couple of things down here, but my mind jumps around. I had this thought, I'm not sure this is the correct quote, but good fences make good neighbors. There's a famous poet that came up with a saying like that. And that may be true. If you got a fence and people adhere to their side of the fence and you adhere to your side of the fence, And you talk across the fence, but everything's kind of copacetic. But I don't think that walls are the same. I don't think walls are the same. Walls isolate. Walls put barriers between people that are not even, they're trying to shut people out. Anyway, I'm not going to I'd like to talk for a while, but I can't. I can't do it. We just got so many problems in this country now that it's beyond belief in my mind. And yet you hear these certain kind of dialogue about how great everything is, and the economy's great, and the job thing is great, and we have the greatest country in the world because other countries are worse off than we are. I understand all that. I mean, there's a million things you can talk about. But the facts are we have created situations now that instead of going in a positive direction with relationships between people and races and everything else, we're going negative. I mean, it's obvious. If you can't see it, you've got to be blind. Hey, even the U.S. Open was a little shot of it there in a way, kind of a weird way, but the stands booing this beautiful little girl that's 20 years old that just won a Grand Slam, and because of some mix-up with the umpire, people are more. People don't seem to look beyond the moment. There's a word, and the word is. Obama just made that little speech he made just recently, and to see this is what's going to happen to me. And I know the guy's name, Woodward. Bob Woodward just wrote that book, and then somebody in the administration wrote up a thing about what's going on in the administration of this country. And if we want to be like, I think Obama, I forget which word he used exactly, but we go about our lives. I'm busy. My son, he's running a business down there. He's working, 12 hours a day. People don't have time to be focusing on these things. I wouldn't even have that much time either, but I watch C-SPAN, I watch the NewsHour, I watch programs. And I do even read a little bit, too, unlike certain people that are running the country. Anyway, we've got big problems, and we need forums to discuss these problems, and this is one of them. And I think I've mentioned it before, and you guys, I'm not good at getting these, I wouldn't be able to get these things done. There should be groups of people talking every week, sitting down in a group and a round table and just, what do they think about what's going on with this, that, or the other thing? And try to work these things out and understand how other people feel. Okay, anyway, I'll quit because I think I've got everything. As far as the water thing, I might want to say some words about that when I let other people talk. Well, we've got a world now to deal with. And do you all realize what a bullet we're dodging right now? Does everybody in this room know what we are dodging right now? On Friday, if that storm hits North Carolina with 145-mile-an-hour winds, nobody remembers. A lot of people aren't old enough to remember what a real hurricane is. That is a real one that's out there now. That's something like the 38 hurricane. Now, 54, we had maybe 3-4 feet of water over Succotash Road. If this one hit, this morning when I was down at the dock, a regular tide, all it would have taken was 4 more feet, and I've already raised my building up 10 feet above mean high tide, like Jim's dock did. If we had that storm, we would have had 3 feet of water in that new building that's raised up, if that storm come through. So we are dodging this whole state, if that storm made the wrong move, this whole state would be devastated.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come up to speak from comments for interested citizens before we go on to the next agenda item? Seeing none, we will move on to the newly added agenda, which is 9A. And this is the time that we will accept comments from interested citizens. If anybody has any suggestions, comments, concerns, or anything to do with the recent water situation that has occurred, now would be your time to come up and state your name at the podium, and we're here to listen.
Meg, we're going to have the representative from Suez come up first. Is that correct?
That works absolutely fine for me, yeah.
Chris Jacobson is here from Suez Water.
Good evening. My name is Chris Jacobs. I'm the manager of Suez Water. And we can, if you just want me to review or just ask questions, how would you?
I think since most people know what the situation was, if there's specific questions, and then you could go on to the review, but that's totally up to you. The floor is yours.
I think a summary would be good of sort of, sequence of events and what you guys did and how you responded and what the plan is going forward would be helpful, at least to start.
Yeah, and if I could just ask for what the baseline is that Suez does in monitoring in all water systems, what that process is with the state and DOH.
Sure. First of all, the process is, or we'll just go through the timeline and get into the process as we go. The first sample was taken during our routine samples, which was August 28th. That's a Tuesday. Every Tuesday we sample 11 sites within our distribution system that the Rhode Island DOH has approved as representative samples. Every system has to sample, depending on the size, will determine the number of samples you have to take on a monthly basis. We actually sample more than what we're required. That's just because we want to get a better representation of our distribution system. So the first positive came back we were notified on the 29th. So those samples, when they get run, is a 24-hour turnaround before you get the results. So, and that's between. It used to be 48 hours with the older method, but we use a Collie alert system that's state recommended, and that's a 24-hour turnaround. So we were notified the next day, and following protocol, we had to sample again. Those samples are, you take a repeat sample of the site that was tested positive, and 2 upstream. You get 2 other samples, 1 upstream and 1 downstream of that existing sample point. Also, because of that, we also have to sample our wells, any wells that were on at the time for the groundwater rule. So those wells were taken, the samples were taken the same day. The original sample point came back clean, but the downstream sample point came back positive. That entire time between the first and second sample, we were in contact with Rhode Island DOH. Both are wholesale customers, which is Narragansett and South Kingstown, and we were preparing for the worst. And unfortunately, the worst had happened, and we did get that second positive, which then triggered automatically a boil water notice. We went ahead as soon as we knew that sample was going to be positive. We went ahead, all 3 towns rolled out their programs to notify. So media was notified. We had hand-delivered notifications to facilities that may not have a single source of a notification. So some of our elderly housing, a hospital. Postings were, sent to libraries and so on, every place that we can get into. And then also, like I said, the media, through the television stations and also radio. And in Suez, we have what we call a notify system, which is like a reverse 911. So anybody in our customer base would have got a phone call, as well as if they have an email address, would have got an email notifying them of the incident. From there, we had to follow a DOH protocol. So the first item we had to do was do participate in what they call a level 2 assessment. That's where the DOH sends out 2 sanitary surveyors to come out and investigate, see if there's any type of smoking gun or if there's any type of deficiency within the system. They toured our entire system on Saturday for the majority of the day, and no findings came back. There was nothing in violation within our facilities. So that included the well houses, pump stations, and so on. We were instructed then to do due diligence, a report submitted to the DOH, and that required us to go out and see if we could find any type of cross connections, any type of deficiencies within our distribution system. That's when we conducted investigations of some of the buildings within the affected area. And I think we all know that by now that the hit happened on one of our locations on Robinson Street in downtown. So through those investigations and talking with people, we could not find anything that stood out that was blatantly obvious. So unfortunately, we could not exactly determine where the source of this E. coli came from. From there, we submitted a report, and then we had to also make sure that we disinfected our system for the requirements of the DOH. They wanted us to increase our chlorine residual to the furthest reaches of our distribution system, which we accomplished. And then they let us go ahead and start our normal sampling. So we actually started sampling our distribution system a day before the DOH, instructed us to, because we wanted to make sure that this wasn't spreading anywhere else, and also 2, to make sure our countermeasures were working. Our team was also assembled from our parent company, where we had sent out from New York to give us assistance. We brought in an engineer, several other employees to help us, and they had numerous years' experience in operation and distribution systems. And we also brought in a hydraulic modeler to look at our system and possibly track where the water was flowing, and if anticipate where we may find this bacteria if it was spreading, and mitigate those areas as soon as possible. So we worked within the state protocol, which is also based on the EPA regulations, stayed in communication with both towns and provided support and investigated throughout this whole situation, and mitigated any type of spread of it, and were able to test out of the boil water nose. So unfortunately, these events do take place. There's no system that is infallible, but I think it shows that the testing caught a situation. We responded to it, and it was just the worst timing possible with Labor Day weekend. So we do understand everybody's concerns, the impact it had on our customer base, and we appreciate everybody's patience, and we also appreciate the support we had from the neighboring towns, the counselors, and we've had some support with getting to some access with buildings from everybody around. So it was great how the community came together. So, any questions?
Chris, I have a quick question. You mentioned Robinson Street as the hit. How was that determined? in terms?
Well, that's where our sample site, we have a normal sample site that is on that street, and that was the site that got the initial positive sample. So no other sites in the system received a positive E. coli, except for there was 2 sites in that were in Robinson Street. All the rest of the areas were clean, the wells were clean, so we knew that it was basically localized.
Could you talk a little bit about the, just so the public knows, I think the coliform was first in one of the tests. Am I incorrect in saying that?
Slightly. When we do the test, you actually measure for coliform first. That's an indicator that there could be a bigger problem. If you test positive in the coliform, then they go for an E. coli test. The coliform, the Coli Alert test that we do is actually a 2-in-1. So what will happen is they'll first change a certain color to indicate a positive coliform, and then it'll change a further color if it indicates an E. coli positive. So it was an E. coli, and 2 E. colis. It was the first one, which was which triggers immediate resampling, which total coliform would as well. But what's different between a total coliform and an E. coli hit is if we got a second total coliform, you'd start resampling. A second E. coli triggers an automatic boil water notice.
I have a couple questions, if you're...
I'm good.
So a few people that have immune systems that are compromised had reached out and were concerned that through your retesting process, there's a delay in the notification to the public, which, as you've explained, is necessary, and it's regulated that you need to retest. Do we know how high those levels are, if it would affect people like that might be bathing or drinking that water and be very vulnerable?
Right. That's a good question, but no, these tests are just present or absent tests. In the older tests, that would take 48 hours for a turnaround. You could get a count, but you're also adding an extra day that you're waiting for results. And the count really doesn't matter, especially with E. coli, because it kind of clumps together. So in a test environment, you could get, a certain amount of count, but when you're actually in the real world, that doesn't really matter because the bacteria actually tends to clump together. And so even if it was a lower count in a test, when it's out in the real system, they form clumps, so you could, get a good, dose of it if you do have it. So unfortunately, there's a bit of a give and take. So if you wanted to do the membrane count, it's going to give you a 48-hour turnaround, which is actually longer time waiting as opposed to a Coli Alert where you could have a 24 or 18-hour turnaround.
I think the residents were more concerned about, because I've explained the testing system to them, but just if there's anything that can be done to notify them that you are doing the retesting, in case that would be really detrimental to their health to be in that position. So
right.
I know that you can't make those policy changes right now, but it's just something that I got some feedback on.
Yeah, that would be something that would have to be brought up to the DOH to make those changes. We couldn't issue a boil water notice like that. And then also, the retesting is crucial because the tests are very sensitive. Mm-hmm. And in order to not panic the public with multiple precautionary boil waters or notices, and also not to, you also don't want to cause the public to almost be in a scenario where you have a boy who cried wolf, where they're not going to take a real notice serious. But it does, you have to take precautions with your first sample because there is a fairly high false positive rate. The tests are very simple, very sensitive. Just by brushing a thumb against the lip or, could cause a false positive.
Go ahead.
The notification system that you referenced with the emails and the phone calls, the reverse 911, a lot of people that I spoke to that, receive email communications from Suez did not get any type of communication, whether it was a phone call or an email. I'm actually included on that list. I pay my bill online and get all the emails, but I didn't get any kind of notification or phone call.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how often you review that process or, how efficient it is, but I think that there were some customers that were definitely left off that list.
Yeah, it depends on if we have we have to make sure that their information is in the system. So we did actually gather well over 100 phone numbers. I'm sorry, with this incident. But one thing that we are doing is we're actually rolling out a new system called Clavest, and it's actually going live on Wednesday. And what that is all our techs have handheld iPads, and when they go out to sites. And so one of our collection methods is it will indicate when they go to a site for either a meter change or meter read. If you don't have that information, customer information, whether it be a phone number or an email, it flags it so we can gather that information as we go on a daily basis.
I just had two more questions. I'm so sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
The second to last question I have is there any method that businesses or residents can go to for financial relief if they had to spend a lot of money on ice or water replacements or a credit in their bill, or is there anything that Suez does to sort of offer anybody any relief?
That's something I don't have an answer for right now. We'll be talking further with that. That's something we've been doing with the review process, but I don't have a solid answer for that right now.
So how should I direct anybody that has any questions about that? Should they?
You could direct them to my office and myself, and we do have a claims personnel that will be able to handle that.
Okay. So. Do you have a timeline idea on that? Like when you guys would think you'll decide?
Yeah, I can. We're working on this week for an answer.
Okay.
Everything's so fresh. We're reviewing everything.
Great.
And so we should have an answer this week.
My very last question is, this contamination just sort of, to me, revealed how vulnerable our water systems are and how easy it can be to have a faulty backflow valve or some sort of mistake that could be seemingly harmless that could result in something like this. So I wonder what sort of precautions does Suez take to protect our water supply from deliberate contamination?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, we've been very aggressive with our backflow program in the last year and a half, and I'm sure some business owners have voiced their opinion on that. But we have, that's something that we've been very aggressive with, and so we're making sure we're getting we've done surveys of the areas, and we've also sent out lots of letters to get that up to speed. So the backflow is very important. We don't want any type of cross-contamination, so we've been very aggressive with that and rolling that out and implementing that. We also have, security measures, fencing, barbed wire fences, and so on around all our facilities. So the new tank that we built, our existing tanks or well fields, so make sure that there's no intrusion in any of those, and monitoring. So it's.
Thank you.
I just have, my questions are tandemly, quickly. The potential target area that was named, my first question to you is, because that was designated potentially the target area, although there was no named source, how often will Suez be out there testing that area again for that potential? And then the second question I have is, a number of those buildings are extremely antiquated, and in some of those buildings there has been a backflow valve issue or something to that nature that they had wanted some of those buildings to put in. Not all of them, at this point, based on what I've read, have complied to put those backflow systems in. I know some of them have, but I know all of them have not. So if that is a potential target area, how quickly will you be testing and how often? And will you be working with those building owners to make sure, because of the age of those facilities, that that's something that you can monitor what you have to do in a better capacity if there's compliance with the owners?
Yep. As far as the testing in that area, we can definitely test whenever we want in that area with those for that site. So that's another portion of our review process of the aftermath of this is how often we want to test it within that area. So that hasn't been determined yet, but we can, there's definitely options. We have accessibility throughout the week. So as far as the addressing the backflows in that area, it is tough to in some of these antiquated buildings to fit in some of the approved backflows because of the plumbing issues and the cost. Business owners will have to replumb, maybe move a meter and find spaces. So we've been working with a lot of the businesses here to give them extra time and help they need to be able to comply with the backflows. But we do have teeth as far as any business owners that feel they don't need to comply, which we've had a lot of pushback from several of them. And we do, according to the PUC, we are allowed to shut off their water. And that's a good motivator. And, we've used that, but it's one of our last resorts. But what we try and do is work with the business owner, inspect those areas, and be able to, convey the message that the importance it is to comply with the backflow. And so what we've already come up with a game plan. We're going to review all the businesses down Main Street and up again, down Robinson, and move throughout the area to make sure that we're getting the compliance that we need. They have to comply with us and give us test results on a yearly basis. And that's basically where we've compiled our list, is we know where our businesses are, who needs the backflows, and we've sent out mass letters to each of them. They don't respond, then we know, with either the test results or a game plan and when they plan on putting in a new backflow, then we stay on them with letters and inspections. So.
Thank you. Before we entertain any more questions here at the council chamber, I'd like to give the opportunity for the public. If there is somebody in the public who would like to speak, and certainly at the end, we as a council can ask more questions. But if anybody from the audience would like to come up and identify themselves by name, please come to the podium. We're not going to be making any decisions or taking any votes. This is strictly just for your comments tonight. And we'd like to certainly hear from you and welcome you to come up to the podium.
I just have one question. When we go to the doctor, we have to find out what the root cause is in our hand if we can't move it. My hearing isn't too good, so did he say that they found the root cause? No. Okay, that is so important. I did hear a lot of what he said, but I didn't hear what I wanted to hear. Because if you can't find the root cause of a big problem, we have a problem. Am I right? Or you're all looking at me as though I have three heads?
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. We don't have the root cause.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Now, if it's, this probably has nothing to do with it, but the Narragansett Bay Commission made it so that I couldn't eat shellfish for a while. I mean, our infrastructure, I didn't want to say this, but our infrastructure period is in chaos in this state. And living here for all the years I have and watching all the problems, somebody's got to take the bull by the horn.
Thank you.
You gave a great presentation. while this was going on, my mind runs in a lot of different directions, but you brought out you mentioned the EPA and you mentioned regulations. How would you feel about having less regulations? Less regulations, yeah.
It depends what it was. Okay, not generally speaking, but it depends.
Do regulations help you do your job? That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Right.
They do?
They do, yeah.
If you didn't have them, you wouldn't have a place to go to find things, right? Regulations kind
Well,
of...
Mr. Traeger, please speak to...
I'm sorry, well,
So, no, 'cause
the
we
reason
can't-
I'm asking
we
that
can't hear you
question
when
is
you
because
turn
I think
ar-
it's one of the major problems that's going on in the country today. The whole country, not just for the water. We got air too, we breathe. We have a lot of things going on. Look what's going on in Florida. All the fish are dying on the shores. There's so many things going on. Like I said, it's mind-boggling to me. It's mind-boggling to realize what's going on. Anyway, I guess Mrs. Stamp asked, it's kind of the question, and we don't have the answer, but we don't have the answer to thousands of questions. This is just one of the little things that we don't have the answer to. We don't have the answer to, I wrote down, affordable housing. We don't have the answer. But we got to get the answers. That's why you guys are doing a great job here. I always love to come to these meetings. Like I said many times, I've never been disappointed coming to a town council meeting. There's always something that comes up that's worth talking about and worth responding to. I feel that's true anyway. It's not boring to me, because everything revolves around people's needs. We had all these requests in the beginning of the meeting, revolving around people's needs, the community needs, the individual needs, the person that's want to make cupcakes. It's all about needs. And the needs are interrelated with who cares about the needs. And if we don't care, and believe me, I think that's the overall problem of the whole country. And I'm not faulting people. It's just that people don't have time to care. They don't know what to do to care. But that's why you need to communicate. That's why we need more communication. Like I say, I probably mentioned it before, I watch Washington Journal when I can in the morning. Now that I've been fishing, I haven't been able to do it every morning. On the weekends I do, though, 7 to 10, but I don't listen to the whole thing. But the first half an hour of it is a subject and people calling in all over the country. You want to get perspective on how different people think? That's what you can do, you know. Or you can create that yourself by having opportunities somehow or other where people can get together. I don't know if you can foster something like that, but I think you'd be doing a great service to the world. Never mind about South Kingstown.
Thank you, Mr. Traeger. Would anybody else like to come up and speak? Please come forward and state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Deanna Shea. I live here in town. And I just have a question, because you gave a really good presentation and everything, but I'm just trying to understand the whole process of how you test the water. Because are you testing the water that's like coming into the wells? Because if you're treating the wells, then the test should come back being negative.
We can't hear.
Oh, all right. I'm sorry.
Speak here, and then if he wants to respond, he can come up to the podium.
Okay. So my question is, I'm trying to understand how they test the water. Like, are they testing the water that's coming into the well? Because the wells are being treated, so of course when they do the test, it should come back negative with no E. coli in it. So how do we know, like, you don't want to have water with E. coli in it, but you don't want to have water that has a lot of bleach in it either. So when you stop doing the treatment with the chlorine, are we just going to go back to having bacteria in the water again? Like, is it just going to be a continuous process?
Why don't you come up and speak to answer that too?
Okay.
So when we do the well test, we test before treatment. That's to make sure that our wells are not contaminated individually. The wells didn't get combined, and we do treatment all the time. We do add chlorine on a daily basis, 24/7. We just had to increase our chlorine residual. So what happens is the wells, we have 2 well fields, and each of the well fields have individual treatment. So the wells get combined as they flow in together into a clear well. From there, booster pumps will pump it out to the system, and as it's going out to the system, we treat it with sodium hypochlorite, which is a chlorine, for disinfectant. We also increase the pH with lime, and we also have a corrosion inhibitor, which is zinc orthophosphate, and that's to protect against lead and copper issues.
And I think...
Did that answer your question?
I think maybe she was also asking about the sort of 11 disparate testing sites throughout the system. Can you just...
Yeah, that gets tested obviously after treatment, but there's a lot that can happen within the distribution system, so that's why you test those sites. It's not always a completely closed environment. As you know, you have main breaks, you can have leaks. We discussed potential cross connections. So that's why we test within the distribution system. And there's a lot of activity. And then to go back to the question about if we're just going to go back to a bacteria issue, no, we're keeping our chlorine levels that are elevated, slightly elevated than normal. But we should have gotten past this. But to go back to your concern is we do not have the answer, but we're going to continue searching for an answer.
We'll let the public know.
If we find something, we'll let everybody know. That's
The answer is you should find it, or else it's going to continue happening.
right. It's also not that easy to find sometimes. So unfortunately, I would love to be able to find the definite answer, because then we can correct it, right? But we will continue to look. That's not, we're not going to just move on to normal and forget this incident ever happened. We're dedicated to keep investigating and make sure we don't have this incident again.
It's all tested down here and not upstate, right? It's tested right in this area, right?
No, we don't have a lab that tests here. We do not have a lab that tests here. So we actually collect the samples and we bring them up to Warwick. That's where the lab is. Yeah. If we had a lab that was closer, we'd definitely use it.
And in regards to the chlorine levels, I think I saw in the Department of Health, one of their bulletins, that even though you have elevated chlorine levels, they're still well below the state regulation for a maximum amount of chlorine you can put in.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The maximum amount of chlorine you can put into water in the state is 4 parts per million, or milligrams per liter. They're the same. But we're only putting in currently around a 1 to a 1.2. And that's because we had elevated it because of this situation. And we plan to settle on around a 1 milligram per liter, so we're not close to that.
Do you think that previously the chlorine levels were being kept too low? Is that potentially part of what?
No, we don't think so. We had, because there's calculations you can do in what they call a CT time, and the amount of chlorine we had in that sample was actually a decent amount of chlorine residual. It was actually around a 0.32, 0.4, which when you're leaving the well field, you do have consumption of that. So the 1.2, by the time you get it into the system, will be about a 0.4, 0.5, and then it will drop as you get further out into the system. We don't think that we're going too low, but just as a precaution, we want to keep it elevated until, we complete our investigation.
So I understand the focus around the Robinson Street hit, but the boil water advisory was actually in place longer in the north end of Narragansett because they had a separate positive total coliform result. Does that indicate that the water system as a whole was just sort of predisposed for growing bacteria at that point? Like, what do you think made it so that the water, I mean, I imagine that they are not connected, those two positive tests.
No, I don't think they're connected, and I can't get into the details of that, but that test, in my opinion, was taken wrongfully by the Department of Health without Narragansett knowledge. Their repeat samples that they did mandated came back negative. When that sample was taken by the DOH, which caused them to stay within the boil water notice, they took that during the Narragansett's mitigation process, where they were flushing and bringing the levels up, chlorine levels up to a DOH standard. DOH sent somebody out there and actually sampled a sample site without them knowing during that entire, while they were disrupting their system to flushing, and so I have a different opinion on that.
Thank you. My final question, I don't know if you know, but we were all on a call at one point over Labor Day weekend. The hospital had been in touch with the authorities, DOH, and said that there were no increased incidents of types of symptoms that we would expect potentially from bacteriological infection. Did that continue throughout the course of the crisis?
They did. They notified us. You can also go on their website to see, but there was, we have no known associated illnesses from this.
And I would like to say thank you for testing the water more than you're required to by law. That's good to hear that you're doing that. And I want to thank you for taking action quickly, helping us out.
No problem. It's our job. So.
Chris, I have a couple of quick questions. Is there anything that the town can do to help with the enforcement of the backflow preventer, being installed in some of these older buildings?
I think just communicating with your, the people that you represent in the business district, the importance of what the backflow does. It's not just meant to be another regulation. It's actually a very important device that prevents situations such as this, as well as other contaminants that are not easily testable. There's a lot of contaminants that can be pulled in with the possible backflow situation that doesn't get tested for regularly, and unfortunately, that could, the only time you'll notice if that results into an illness or something. So these devices are very important, and we're actually in kind of an unusual system where we're actually, with every meter for the household, we add a backflow device, which most systems don't even bother putting them on at 5/8 meter for a normal household, where we do. That's a standard procedure.
And I guess I have a couple more questions or just comments. Would you say that we don't know the cause, but do you think it was anything that Suez did, or is it something in the environment, meaning a building, that may have caused this issue?
I really do think it's something in the environment. We've had the survey come out. There's no open gaps within our, as far as in their wells where something can get in. We have the proper screening on all our vents and enclosures for our tanks and so on. The level 2 assessment came back good. So as far as our facilities go, we didn't have any deficiencies. Within the distribution system, there's a lot can happen. There is ways that it can infiltrate. It is rarely rare, but it can happen. So I think it could be something in the environment. It could have been something that because of the hotter weather that we've had than normal, you can actually develop some biofilms within. You have certain areas in your distribution systems. It can be a number of different causes, but that's what's so difficult about this to pin down. So it could just be all speculation right now.
So one of the last things, I guess, is trying to address, and it's hard for us up here, lots of rumors going around town about what may have caused it.
Right.
Kind of as if we know, but we're not telling them, telling the public. But at this point, you're saying that there is no smoking gun.
No, and I've heard the rumors myself, and there was rumors going around as far as why we're testing certain locations, and that was precautionary. Location of where the hit was. Also, just doing our investigation, we just wanted to rule any potentials out. So as far as the rumors go, there has been no known cause of this.
And lastly, the testing sites that you talk about, are they businesses, homes, or is it a fire hydrant or something different?
No, we always try and find, we mostly try and find businesses. There's one residential, but we do not take from fire hydrants because you can get too many false positives. And we want to take representative samples. So there's some food establishments, businesses, and so on. And they're located throughout the distribution system to give you the far reaches, the center, and medium. And that way it gives you a good representation of what your distribution system is doing. So there's a little mix of everything, but mostly businesses and food establishments.
So the positive test result came back at
a business.
At a business that you normally test?
Correct. Yeah. And the reason I'm not giving out names, I don't want any, issues, that's
you understand that completely.
Perceptions and so on. So.
Any other questions, comments from the public?
No, thank you. Thank you for showing up tonight and giving a great explanation.
Good. I hope we cleared it up. And if there's any other further questions, you can always reach me at my offices at Suez. And thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
Yep, please come up to the podium.
The backflow issue, glad you brought it up because I was thinking about it, but I wasn't going to do it. But I mean, there's a lot of different ways backflows. There's all kinds of backflows in a business. They make you put it on the faucet that, so the water will only go one way. But in the water, the actual, where you turn it on at the street, they've changed that quite a few years ago, I think, where if they put a new one in, I don't know how many old ones still exist, but the old ones, you turn it a quarter turn, and then if you want to shut the water off, and then it drained back. But I didn't realize, I didn't think it drained back into the line. I thought it drained back into the ground. But they don't allow that anymore. They stopped putting that type in. Well, one, correcting a problem can create a problem. And the problem that creates with the seasonal people is that when it doesn't drain back, oftentimes those pipes will freeze between the street and the building. But I'm glad this ended the way it ended just now. Is what I think is very important. Is that it's not only a backflow problem. I'm glad it didn't get pinned down to a backflow problem because it could be a lot of other problems, as you pointed out already.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we can move on to the town manager's report.
All right. Well, let's just see here. I'm going to escape out of this. And we'll go to our flag report first. A couple of things on the report worth noting. The assessor's office and I, over the course of the last week, have had conversations, and this is an item that actually a member of council has brought to our attention. Vans in South Kingstown are not currently afforded an exemption, even if those vans are used for disabled persons. I've had the assessor investigate whether a exemption for vans used by the handicap would have a substantial impact on our revenues. We're estimating that we have probably about 2 of these, perhaps 3 of these vans in town, and they would not have a tremendous impact. So at some point, we'll be coming to the council to look for guidance on whether an ordinance exempting vans that are specially equipped with lifts for wheelchairs and this sort of equipment ought to be partially exempt. The value would be, the state statute allows for a 50% of value exemption for those vans. The number of vans is very small and the impact would be small. So again, we'll be coming to the council for guidance on that. I will note that today the electric charging stations were installed down at the Comfort Station. So we have, I believe it's 2 charging stations that were installed, and electric vehicles should be able to pull up and start charging for a fee. We're charging for charging at the Comfort Station. But the fee is really just the cost of the electricity. It's not going to be any exorbitant profit that we're making here. The idea was to make the resource available to the public, and we're getting toward completion on that project. A charging station will also be installed behind Town Hall for town vehicles. I think that's scheduled for tomorrow. So that project is moving. Although we still don't have our electric vehicle, we're working through the contracting on that and hope to have that vehicle by the time we have a new building inspector to start driving it around. Really, the reds on the report this week are actually beginning to resolve themselves. The budget issue around the contract labor contracts really is sort of, we're working through that as we get toward the new budget cycle. I think we're moving from red to yellow in that category. The plumbing and mechanical position in the building department is, an offer has not been made, but we're soon going to see that resolve. We'll have a part-time person ready to fill that position, and that issue is beginning to resolve itself as well. We do have a fairly significant red in facilities. We've done some removal of facade down at the animal shelter and discovered that the structure is in worse shape than we had anticipated. We have a contract issue there because we had someone who had bid on the work, and it's a bigger project than he or we anticipated before the facade was removed. IT's comp time is sort of standard operating procedure for an office that's busy, and the reds in public works are really all related to the water issues that we've been dealing with over the last week. I think we got a pretty good summary of the timeline and what's happened here. I will make a couple of observations about the local response. I know folks were frustrated with not having complete information as early in the process as they'd like, and I think Chris Jacobs' explanation about the need to make sure that you're not unduly alarming folks is the correct explanation. That first test could easily have been a false positive, and you could have gone to sort of DEFCON 10 long before it was, or before it was necessary. We have had very good conversations with the Department of Health about sort of revisiting the protocol, and they were wonderful about thinking through ways that the public might be notified earlier without necessarily creating an undue public concern. We'll see where those conversations go. I do think that they learned from this experience. This was a complicated one in the sense that there were 5 water service providers involved, and that added to some of the public's frustration because this came not like a hurricane where our only concern was the geographic area within which people lived, but rather the geographic designations associated with a regulatory scheme. So we describe things as the South Shore, which isn't a place that people understand and appreciate, but that was the name of the service provider. So because we came at this through a sort of regulatory regime, I think the communications were somewhat complicated. Those are issues unique to this kind of situation. They're not the kind of problems that we see when we have a hurricane bearing down on us, but they're also issues that we do need to address, and we'll continue to work with the Department of Health to figure out whether there's a way to sort of improve communication if we ever have, and hopefully we're never going to have an event like this again, but if we should ever have a need to communicate about the water systems, that we can do it in a way that makes a little more sense. We had a lot of confusion about, am I a Suez customer? We had people literally checking their bills to figure out who they're supposed to be receiving a phone call from. We can improve on that, I think, and again, we'll continue that conversation with the Department of Health with the aim of getting to a better communication system to the public in the future. That having been said, here locally, the response was just phenomenal. I have to say, we owe a great debt of gratitude to the residents and to the businesses in South Kingstown. Businesses on a holiday weekend took extraordinary measures, phone calls from restaurant owners who recognized at 5 o'clock on Friday, the boil order having come in, or advisory having come in at 4 or 5 o'clock, recognizing that they were going to have to dispose of ice, recognizing that they were going to have to deal with their dishes in a completely different, and just took it in stride and did what they had to do. We had very responsible responses from businesses, and the volunteers, Lions Club, the Elks stepped right up and started to help us. Our priorities in the beginning were to make sure that the schools could open at the end of the holiday weekend, and making sure that anyone who, for whatever reason, could not boil water or could not go out and get fresh water themselves, bottled water themselves, had access to it. Volunteers stepped up and did that, and it was just really an extraordinary response. We also had Alltown donate 4 pallets of water to the community, which I thought was a very generous offer from a company that had no relationship to the problem or creating the problem. The governor's office, the Department of Health, the town of Narragansett, the town of Charlestown, all just stepped up and provided resources and support to the town, and we do owe them appreciation as well. Kingston Fire District on Saturday, when we called them and said, look, we have folks who don't have water, said, let's send them over. Let them come up here and fill up jugs. Again, just a great, generous offer. John Schock and his folks were manning the phones all weekend long. We had public employees who decided to volunteer their Labor Day weekend to make sure that people could have answers as best we could provide them throughout the weekend, and again, stepped above and beyond the call to duty and did what they had to do to make sure the public was well served. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that as town manager. Volunteered to do it. Just great service. The police department, Mark Healy in particular, was just extraordinary in keeping us going on the code red. Leisure Services, Terry Murphy, when we found that we were sort of inundating Kingston Fire, opened up a second water station, and her staff went out and staffed it initially before we could get the volunteers the information they needed to man that station. The library director took water and made sure folks in Peacedale had a place where they could pick up water. And of course, Amy Reiner and Colleen in my office just kept that Facebook rolling, just kept all the information out there. It was not a great week. It's a week that we would rather not have gone through, but if there was any place and any group of people you have to go through this experience, South Kingstown is the place to do it, because again, the businesses and residents were just phenomenal. That's my report for the week.
Thank you.
They were, to reiterate that, it was a great group effort this weekend. I know we were all on phone calls trying to see who had water needs and conference calls, but it really was nothing in comparison to what the people in the community stepped up to do. It was wonderful. Moving on, do we have a town solicitor's report?
Not tonight.
Okay, thank you. And under 13, I think we do have an appointment or two, Joe.
I don't think so.
No? Okay. Let's move on then, and we will move on to 14C, which is a resolution authorizing the police chief to enter into a 72-month lease to own agreement with Gemalto Cogent for a live scan booking workstation, complete with an FBI certified printer. This is at a cost of $600 per month for a total cost of $43,200. And this has been described in a memorandum from the chief to the town manager dated August 1st, live scan electronic fingerprinting system replacement. Do we have a motion or any discussion?
Motion to approve item 14C is presented.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to D is a resolution authorizing the police chief to act in the capacity as the designated agent with the authority to apply for Edward Byrne Justice Assistant Grant, sub-grant funding, and to act in connection with any applications filed under this program and to provide such additional information as may be required. And again, this is described in a memorandum to the town manager dated August 1st, Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant, authority to apply.
Just, Chief, you don't have to come up. I was wondering if there has been anything identified that we're going to spend the money on. If not, we can just approve it. I was wondering, it seems like we're just applying for this grant without really knowing what the money might be used for at this point, or do we have...
No, we actually have the live scan system, and at this point we need a new system, and it electronically transfers fingerprints to the Attorney General's office and to the FBI.
Is that for, so that's the Edward Byrne Justice, so the Justice Assistant Grant is goes towards that item C, the...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So actually, it gives me the authority to apply for the grant, which pays for the $600 a month.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Moving to motion to approve item 14D is presented.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There's no additional business. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 9:49.